Anna sat at the small bus stop on the edge of town. The sun was dipping low, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. The air was quiet, except for the gentle sound of birds returning to their nests. Anna rested her crutch beside her and leaned back on the wooden bench. She had been waiting for the bus for more than 15 minutes, and she knew it would be late again, like always. She pulled her school bag closer, hugging it to her chest. It was not heavy, just filled with her notebooks and pencils, but to Anna it felt like a shield. She always carried it this way, as if it could protect her from the eyes of strangers or from the whispers she often heard behind her back. Anna was not like other children her age. Walking was hard for her. One of her legs was weaker, and she needed the crutch to move around. At school, she often sat alone during lunch. Some children were kind, but many just ignored her. She had learned to keep quiet, to stay out of trouble, and to pretend that she did not notice when people stared. The road was empty now, except for the long shadows stretching across the ground. Anna stared at the horizon, trying to distract herself. She imagined what it would be like to run freely like other kids. She imagined herself chasing after a ball, laughing, with no one watching her with pity. The thought brought both joy and sadness. Her mother always told her she was strong. "You are brave, Anna," her mother would say with a smile. But sometimes, when Anna was alone like this, she did not feel brave at all. She felt small, almost invisible. A cool breeze passed through, making the leaves of a nearby tree dance. Anna liked moments like this, moments when the world felt peaceful. She closed her eyes and listened to the wind. For a few minutes, she could forget her tired legs, her loneliness, and the weight of being different. But peace never stayed for long. From a distance, the faint sound of engines began to rise. Anna opened her eyes and turned her head. She saw 3 motorcycles coming down the road, their headlights glowing in the dimming light. The sound grew louder, breaking the stillness. Her heart tightened a little. She did not know these riders, but the noise of their engines always made her nervous. She gripped her crutch tighter and lowered her gaze, hoping they would pass without noticing her. The bike slowed as they approached the bus stop. The riders were not old, but not very young either. Their laughter echoed as they stopped near her. Anna kept her eyes on the ground, wishing she could disappear. One of them pointed toward her, but she could not hear his words clearly. The other 2 chuckled. Anna pulled her school bag closer and held it tighter. She knew this feeling. She had felt it many times before, the heavy silence of being noticed in the wrong way. The bikers spoke among themselves for a moment, their voices low but filled with amusement. Anna tried not to listen, but the tone was enough. She could feel the heat rising in her face. Finally, after what felt like forever, they revved their engines again. With another burst of laughter, they drove away, leaving dust in the air. Anna sat still, staring at the road where they had gone. She wanted to believe their words did not matter, but deep inside, they did. Every unkind look, every whisper, every laugh, each one stayed with her, building a wall of sadness around her heart. She leaned back against the bench and let out a long breath. The bus had not yet arrived, and now the silence felt heavier than before. The sun had nearly set, and the sky was turning dark purple. Anna's eyes grew wet, and she quickly wiped them with the back of her hand. She did not want anyone to see her crying, even if no one was around. For a moment, she thought about calling her mother to come pick her up, but her mother was at work and could not leave early. Anna did not want to trouble her. She told herself she could be strong for just a little longer. The minutes passed slowly. The sound of the wind returned, carrying with it the smell of grass and dust. The world seemed so big, and Anna felt so small. She wondered why life had to be this way. Why couldn't people just be kind? Why did some choose to laugh at others instead of helping them? She looked at her crutch resting against the bench. To most people, it was just a stick of metal and rubber, but to Anna, it was part of her life. It reminded her of her difference, yes, but it also carried her forward every single day. Without it, she would not even be able to stand. Thinking of this gave her a tiny spark of courage. She sat up straighter and whispered to herself, I can wait. I can be strong. The bus was still nowhere in sight, and the road ahead stretched endlessly into the night. Anna did not know that soon, her quiet evening would change forever. Someone was coming, someone who would see her pain, someone who would remind her that she was not alone in this world. For now, though, Anna sat in the fading light, holding onto her crutch, her school bag, and the hope that tomorrow might be gentler than today. The evening grew darker as Anna sat quietly on the wooden bench. The sun had now slipped below the horizon, and the first few stars began to appear in the sky. The air was cooler, carrying the faint scent of earth and grass. Anna shifted her school bag on her lap and glanced down the road. Still no bus. She sighed softly. The silence felt heavy after the long day at school. She wanted nothing more than to be home with her mother, in the small kitchen where the smell of warm bread often filled the air. But instead, she sat alone on the roadside, waiting. Then, the low hum of engines reached her ears again. This time it was closer, louder, and stronger. Anna froze. She remembered the 3 motorcycles she had seen earlier. She prayed silently that they would not return. She looked down, hugging her bag tightly, as if hiding her face would make her invisible. The engines roared, and within moments the 3 bikers appeared once more, riding side by side. Their headlights cut through the dim light, shining directly toward the bus stop. The sound echoed against the empty road, breaking the peaceful evening into pieces. Anna's heart began to beat faster. She sat very still, her crutch leaning against her leg. She hoped they would pass quickly, but instead, they slowed down again. Their motorcycles came to a stop just a few feet from where she sat. The riders removed their helmets, revealing their grinning faces. They looked at Anna with the kind of amusement that made her stomach twist. None of them seemed cruel in a loud way, but their eyes carried mischief. One of them leaned slightly forward on his bike and said, "Still waiting here, little one." His tone was playful, but not kind. Anna did not answer. She kept her eyes fixed on the ground. Another rider laughed softly. "Look at her. She won't even look up. Maybe she's scared." His voice echoed with the sound of the engine still running. Anna gripped the strap of her school bag until her knuckles turned pale. She wanted to stand up and leave, but her weak leg made sudden movements difficult. And where could she go? The road was empty, and the bus had not yet come. The 3rd rider shook his head as though amused. "Why sit here all alone in the dark? Isn't it dangerous?" he asked, though his voice carried no real concern. Their laughter followed. It wasn't loud or harsh, but it carried weight, like tiny needles pricking her heart. Anna kept silent, telling herself it would be over soon if she did not respond. The bikers talked among themselves for a while, tossing casual words in her direction, as if testing how far they could go. Anna wished she could disappear into the bench, into the shadows, anywhere but here. Minutes felt like hours. The sound of their engines rumbled, filling the quiet space around her. Anna's mind raced back to other times she had faced similar moments at school: whispers in the hallway, giggles behind her back, and the weight of being different. Those small wounds had never fully healed, and tonight, they opened again. Finally, one of the bikers smirked and turned his handlebars. "Come on, let's go," he said to the others. With a sudden roar, all 3 engines grew louder. The motorcycles sped off down the road, their red tail lights fading into the distance. The noise echoed for a while before silence returned once more. Anna stayed frozen for several moments, her breath uneven. Slowly, she loosened her grip on her bag. Her hands were trembling, and she pressed them against her knees to steady them. The quiet road looked the same as before, yet everything felt different to Anna. She could still hear the sound of their laughter in her head, still feel the sting of their words. She told herself she had done the right thing by staying silent, but deep inside, she felt something heavy. She had not wanted to cry, but a tear slipped down her cheek anyway. She quickly wiped it away. "Be strong," she whispered to herself, echoing her mother's words. But strength felt far away at that moment. The bus was still nowhere in sight. Anna leaned back against the bench, closing her eyes. She wanted to believe that this moment would pass, that tomorrow would be brighter. But the road was long, the night was falling, and she felt very much alone. Still, there was a small flame inside her that refused to go out. Even as she sat with sadness pressing on her heart, part of her whispered, "Someone will see me. Someone will care." Anna did not know it yet, but her hope was not in vain. In just a little while, a car would stop near the bus stop, and a woman would step out, someone who would not laugh, someone who would not judge, but someone who would remind Anna of her true worth. For now, the only company she had was the cool breeze and the stars beginning to shine above her. And though her heart was heavy, she sat quietly, holding on to her crutch, waiting for the bus, waiting for a kinder tomorrow. The road was quiet again. The sound of the motorcycles had faded into the distance, leaving behind only the whisper of the evening breeze. Anna sat very still on the wooden bench, her crutch leaning against her side. For a few moments, she almost convinced herself that nothing had happened, that the three bikers had never stopped, never laughed, never pointed. But the silence around her carried their voices. In her mind, she could still hear the echo of their chuckles. Each sound seemed to press into her heart like a small stone added to a heavy pile. She pressed her lips together and blinked, trying to hold back the tears. She had learned long ago that crying in public only brought more stares, more whispers. At school, whenever she cried, someone would always notice and ask what was wrong, but not in a gentle way. It would be with a smile, as if her tears were something amusing. So, she had trained herself to stay quiet, to hide her feelings deep inside. Yet tonight, on the lonely road, with no one watching, the mask slipped. A single tear rolled down her cheek, warm against her skin. She quickly wiped it away with the back of her hand, but another one followed, and then another. Soon, her face was wet. She hugged her school bag tightly to her chest, burying her face in it. The fabric smelled faintly of books and paper, but it was familiar and safe. She whispered into it, her voice trembling, "Why does it have to be me?" It wasn't just about the bikers. Their laughter was only a spark that lit a fire already burning inside her. She remembered the many days at school when children played games, running freely on the field while she sat on the side, her crutch by her side, watching. Sometimes, they invited her to join, but only when the teacher insisted. And when she tried, she was always slower, always the one who struggled to keep up. Anna knew she was different. She had known it since she was little. Her mother told her it was not her fault, that she was strong because of it, not weak. But strength was hard to see when the world reminded her of her difference every day. She lifted her head and looked at the empty road stretching into the night. The street lamp near the bus stop flickered, casting long shadows across the ground. The silence was almost too heavy, pressing down on her chest. She wished the bus would come quickly. She wished she could be home, in her warm room, far away from the laughter of strangers. A memory surfaced, one she had buried deep. She was younger then, maybe 6 years old, trying to climb the small slide at the playground. Other children had rushed past her, climbing easily and laughing as they slid down. Anna had struggled, her crutch slipping in the sand, her hands grasping the metal railing. Finally, she had reached the top, proud of herself. But instead of cheering, the other children had laughed. She had not understood why at first. Only later did she realize it was because of the way she moved, the way her body did not work like theirs. That memory, like so many others, sat heavy in her heart. Tonight, it returned with sharpness, as if no time had passed at all. Her chest tightened, and she pressed her face into her bag again, whispering softly, "I'm not weak. I'm not weak." She said it again and again, hoping the words would become true, hoping they would cover the hurt she felt. The night grew colder, and Anna shivered. She shifted her crutch closer, the cool metal pressing against her hand. It was strange how something so simple had become a part of her life, as important as her own legs. Without it, she could not walk. With it, she could move forward. But tonight, even with her crutch beside her, she felt stuck. She wiped her face again, trying to clear the tears. "Be strong," she whispered, echoing her mother's voice in her memory. "Be strong, Anna. Just wait a little longer." The stars above grew brighter as the sky deepened into dark blue. The road was still empty, no headlights, no sign of the bus. The silence stretched, and with it, her thoughts. She wondered why kindness was so rare. Why was it easier for people to laugh than to care? She thought of her mother, who always smiled at strangers, always offered a kind word. Anna wished more people could be like her mother. She wished anyone would sit beside her now and remind her that she mattered. Her eyes closed, and she leaned back against the bench. For a brief moment, she allowed herself to imagine a different world, a world where no one laughed at her, where she was not seen as weak, but as brave. In that world, she ran across fields without her crutch, free and light as the wind. She laughed not in sadness but in joy. The image was so beautiful it brought fresh tears to her eyes. Yet even as they fell, Anna held onto that dream. Deep down, she believed that someday, somehow, life would give her a moment like that. The cool night air wrapped around her like a blanket, and though she still felt small, she whispered one last time, "I will be strong." Anna did not know that her prayer was about to be answered. The silence would not last forever. Someone was on the way, someone who would see not her weakness but her courage, someone who would remind her that even in a world full of shadows, light could still shine. For now, the lonely road held her tears, her silence, and her fragile hope. Anna sat quietly on the wooden bench, her crutch leaning against her leg. The night had grown darker, and the stars sparkled faintly in the sky. The cool wind brushed against her cheeks, drying the tears she had tried so hard to hide. The road was still empty, and her bus was nowhere in sight. She hugged her school bag close and whispered to herself, "Just a little longer. I can wait." But in her heart, she felt tired of waiting, tired of the loneliness, tired of the way the world sometimes treated her. Then, in the distance, she noticed the soft glow of headlights. A car was coming down the road, moving slowly as if searching for something. Anna sat up straighter, wiping her face quickly. She hoped the driver would not stop, because she did not want anyone to see her sadness. But the car slowed as it approached the bus stop. Its engine hummed softly, different from the loud roar of the motorcycles earlier. The vehicle came to a gentle stop near the bench. The driver's door opened, and a woman stepped out. She was tall, with calm eyes and a kind expression. Her skin glowed warmly in the faint light of the street lamp. She carried herself with quiet strength, as if she had faced many storms in life and had learned how to stand steady through them. Her name was Grace. Grace glanced at Anna, and her heart softened. She saw a small girl sitting alone with a crutch by her side, her face pale and her eyes red from crying. Grace had been driving home after visiting a friend when she noticed the lonely figure at the roadside. Something inside her told her to stop. "Hello there," Grace said gently, her voice filled with warmth. "Are you waiting for the bus?" Anna nodded quickly, lowering her eyes. "Yes." Grace walked closer and smiled softly. It's a late evening for someone your age to be out here alone. Are you all right? Anna clutched her bag tighter. She wanted to say she was fine, but the lump in her throat made it hard. She only nodded again. Grace could sense the truth. She had seen that look before, eyes that tried to hide pain, shoulders that carried more weight than they should. She crouched down slightly so her eyes were level with Anna's. You don't have to answer if you don't want to, Grace said kindly. But sometimes it helps to share what's in your heart. For a moment, Anna hesitated. She had spent so long hiding her feelings that the idea of sharing them felt impossible. Yet there was something about Grace's voice, something safe and gentle, that loosened the tight knot inside her. I'm just tired, Anna whispered at last. Tired of waiting. Tired of everything. Grace nodded slowly, as if she understood more than the words themselves. She sat down on the bench beside Anna, leaving a respectful space between them. I know that feeling, she said softly. Life can feel heavy sometimes, especially when people are not kind. Anna's eyes widened slightly. She had not said anything about what happened earlier, yet somehow Grace seemed to know. The older woman continued, when I was young, I also felt different. People looked at me in ways that made me feel small. They judged me before knowing me. It hurt deeply. She paused, her voice steady but gentle. But I learned something important, their words do not define who I am. Anna looked at her, listening closely. Grace smiled at her, the kind of smile that carried warmth like sunlight after rain. You are more than what people see at first glance. You are strong simply because you are still here, still moving forward, even when it's hard. That is not weakness, that is courage. Anna's lips trembled, and she blinked quickly. No one had spoken to her like this before. Most people looked at her with pity or avoided her altogether. But Grace's words felt different. They did not make her feel small, they made her feel seen. The night air grew colder, but Anna felt a quiet warmth spreading inside her. She whispered, Do you really think I'm strong? Grace nodded firmly. I know you are. Look at you, you're waiting here alone, carrying yourself with courage, even after a long day. That is not easy, but you are doing it. That tells me you have a strong heart. Anna stared at her crutch, resting against the bench. She thought about all the times she had seen it as a symbol of her weakness. But now, hearing Grace's words, she wondered if maybe it was a symbol of her strength instead. The headlights of another car passed by on the road, and for a moment, the light illuminated Grace's face. Her eyes glowed with kindness, steady and sure. Anna felt safe beside her, as if the loneliness she had carried for so long was slowly lifting. Grace looked at the dark road and then back at Anna. Your bus is late, isn't it? How about I stay here with you until it comes? You shouldn't have to wait alone. Anna's eyes brightened. She nodded quickly, a small smile forming on her lips for the first time that evening. I'd like that. So they sat together in the cool night air, one young girl with silent struggles and one woman who understood the weight of being judged. The silence between them was not heavy anymore. It was gentle, like the quiet of a safe home. For the first time that day, Anna did not feel invisible. She felt noticed. She felt cared for. And deep inside, a fragile hope began to grow stronger. She did not know yet how much Grace would change her life. But in that moment, she knew one thing, she was no longer alone on the lonely road. The night air was cool, and the stars above sparkled softly, as if listening to the quiet conversation at the bus stop. Anna sat beside Grace, her school bag still hugged against her chest, but she no longer felt the same loneliness that had weighed on her before. Grace's presence was steady, like a lantern in the dark, filling the silence with warmth. Grace glanced at the girl beside her and spoke in a gentle voice. You know, Anna, she began, sometimes life puts us in difficult places, not because we are weak, but because we are strong enough to handle them. Anna looked at her curiously. But I don't feel strong, she admitted softly. I feel small. I feel like I can't do anything others can. Grace smiled kindly. I used to feel the same way when I was young. She leaned back slightly, her eyes gazing at the stars. When I was your age, people would look at me and see only the color of my skin. Some treated me kindly, but others made me feel like I did not belong, just because of how I looked. Anna tilted her head. That must have hurt. Grace nodded. It did. Words can hurt more than stones sometimes. People's laughter, their whispers, their stares, they can make your heart heavy. But with time, I learned something. I learned that their words were only echoes of their own weakness, not mine. Anna thought about the bikers earlier, the way their laughter had echoed in her ears long after they had gone. So, you didn't believe them? She asked carefully. Grace looked at her with kind eyes. At first I did. I believed I was less, I believed I was small. But then I realized that believing them was like carrying their shadows on my shoulders. It made me weaker, and it gave their words power. So I chose to let go of those shadows. I told myself, I am who I am, and that is enough. Anna lowered her gaze to her crutch. But what if people never stop? What if they always laugh? Grace placed her hand gently on the bench between them, close enough to offer comfort but not too close to make Anna uneasy. Then you keep walking. You keep living. Every step you take is proof of your strength. Their laughter is loud, but it fades. Your courage stays with you forever. The girl sat quietly, letting those words sink into her heart. She thought of all the times she had felt invisible, all the times she had cried silently, wishing to be different. Now, for the first time, she wondered if perhaps her difference was not only pain, it could also be strength. Grace continued, her voice steady and calm. Do you know what true strength is, Anna? It's not about running the fastest or lifting the heaviest. True strength is standing tall when the world tries to push you down. It's smiling again after you've cried. It's hoping again after you've been hurt. And I see that strength in you. Anna's eyes grew wet again, but this time not from sadness. Do you really think so? She whispered. I don't just think, Grace said warmly. I know. The girl's lips curved into the smallest smile. She had never heard anyone say such words to her before. Most people looked at her and saw only her weakness, her crutch, her slower steps. But Grace looked at her and saw something else, something Anna had never truly believed she had. For the first time that day, Anna's shoulders felt lighter. She loosened her grip on her bag and let it rest beside her. Her hands no longer trembled. Grace noticed and smiled gently. See? Even now, you are learning to let go of the weight. Sometimes the heaviest weight we carry is not on our legs or our back, but in our heart. The silence between them grew soft, filled not with loneliness but with understanding. A car passed by on the road, its headlights sweeping across their faces for a brief moment before disappearing again into the distance. Anna spoke after a long pause. I wish more people were like you. Grace shook her head kindly. The world will always have people who laugh at others. But the world also has people who care, people who will stand beside you. You just have to keep your heart open enough to find them. Anna thought about that, her small smile growing a little brighter. She realized that tonight, she had found one of those people. The bus was still late, but Anna no longer minded. The waiting no longer felt heavy, because she was not waiting alone anymore. Grace leaned back against the bench, her eyes still on the sky. Whenever you feel weak, Anna, remember this, strength is not about what your body can do. Strength is about what your heart chooses to do. And your heart is braver than you know. The girl let out a soft breath. Her tears had dried, replaced by a calm warmth inside her chest. She whispered, almost to herself, "I want to be strong like you." Grace turned her head and smiled gently. "You already are." They sat together in the night, a woman who had walked through her own storms and a young girl learning to face hers. The world was still vast, still filled with shadows, but under the starlit sky, Anna felt less afraid. For the first time in a long while, she believed that maybe tomorrow could be different. Maybe tomorrow she could face the world not as someone weak, but as someone strong. And as Grace sat beside her, Anna felt comforted in a way she had never known before. The night had grown darker, but the small street lamp near the bus stop gave a gentle glow over the bench where Anna and Grace sat. The air was cool, filled with the soft sounds of crickets in the nearby grass. The world was quiet, almost as if it was listening to their conversation. Anna leaned slightly against the back of the bench, her school bag now resting on the ground by her feet. She felt lighter than before, though she could not fully explain why. Grace's words still echoed in her heart, like a soft melody she wanted to hold onto. Grace looked at her with a calm smile. "Anna," she said gently, "do you know something special about storms?" Anna shook her head, curious. Grace lifted her eyes to the sky. "Storms may look frightening, but they always pass. The clouds never stay forever. And when the storm ends, the sky becomes clear, sometimes even brighter than before." Anna listened closely. Grace turned her gaze back to her. "Life is like that too. Pain and unkindness feel like storms. They can make you afraid, they can make you feel small. But they pass. What remains is your strength, your courage, and the lessons you learn." Anna tilted her head, thinking about the words. "So, even if people laugh, it won't last forever." Grace nodded. "That's right. Their laughter fades. But the way you stand after it, that stays. That becomes your strength." Anna's eyes lowered to her crutch, shining faintly under the street lamp. "Sometimes I wish I didn't need this," she whispered. Grace leaned forward slightly, her voice gentle but firm. "Do you know what I see when I look at that crutch? I don't see weakness. I see courage. I see a girl who refuses to give up, who uses what she has to keep moving forward. That, Anna, is strength." Anna's eyes grew wide. No one had ever described it like that before. She had always thought of her crutch as a reminder of what she could not do. But now, Grace was showing her another way to see it, something that represented persistence, not failure. The girl's lips curved into a small smile. Maybe it is a little like strength." Grace nodded warmly. "Exactly. Every step you take with it is proof that you refuse to stop. Do you know how brave that is?" Anna looked down, her cheeks warming with a shy smile. "No one ever told me that before." Grace's eyes softened. "Then let me be the first. You are braver than you realize, Anna. The world may not always say it, but it's true." The silence that followed was not heavy. It was peaceful, filled with a quiet bond between them. The stars above twinkled brighter, as if joining in the lesson. After a moment, Grace spoke again. "When I was younger, I also faced storms. People judged me without knowing me. But I chose not to let their words decide my life. I decided who I wanted to be. And you can too." Anna lifted her eyes slowly. "But how? How do I decide who I am when others always see me differently?" Grace's voice was calm but strong. "You start by believing in yourself more than in their words. You remind yourself every day that you are valuable, that you matter. And when you feel weak, you don't hide it, you turn it into courage. Courage is not about never being afraid. It's about moving forward even when you are afraid." Anna let the words sink into her heart. She thought of the bikers earlier, their laughter echoing like thunder. She remembered how small she had felt. But now, sitting beside Grace, she realized something: she was still here. She had not run away. She had faced it, even if she had been silent. That, too, was a kind of strength. She looked at Grace with shining eyes. So, even if I cry, even if I feel weak, I can still be strong. Grace smiled gently. Yes. Especially then. Tears don't make you weak. They show that your heart is alive. What makes you strong is standing again after you've cried. The girl's chest felt warm, as if a new light had been lit inside her. For the first time, she believed that maybe she wasn't just a small, invisible girl. Maybe she was more. The sound of a bus horn echoed faintly in the distance. Anna sat up straighter, realizing her ride was finally arriving. She looked at Grace quickly, not wanting their time to end. Grace noticed and touched her hand lightly. Remember, Anna, strength is not about what others say. It's about what you choose to believe about yourself. Carry that lesson with you always. The bus pulled up slowly, its lights bright against the night. The doors opened with a hiss. Anna stood carefully, picking up her crutch. For a moment, she hesitated. She turned back to Grace with a small but genuine smile. Thank you, for everything. Grace nodded, her eyes warm. You don't need to thank me, Anna. Just promise me one thing: never forget how strong you truly are. Anna nodded firmly, her smile brighter now. I promise. She stepped onto the bus, her crutch clicking softly against the floor. As the bus began to move, Anna looked out the window. Grace was still there on the bench, smiling up at her. For the first time in a long while, Anna's heart felt light. The road ahead no longer seemed as lonely. She had learned something she would carry forever: that true strength was not in her legs, but in her spirit. The bus moved gently along the quiet streets, its lights glowing against the darkness. Anna sat by the window, her crutch resting beside her, her small hands pressed softly against her bag. She looked outside, watching the world pass by. But her heart was not heavy anymore. It felt lighter, warmer, as if someone had placed a small flame inside it. She thought of Grace's words again: strength is not about what others say. It's about what you choose to believe about yourself. The sentence repeated in her mind like a song she didn't want to forget. For so long, Anna had believed she was weak because of her leg, because of the way people treated her. But tonight was different. Tonight, she had met someone who had seen her not as a broken girl, but as a strong one. That single truth made her sit straighter on the bus seat, her chin lifted just a little higher. The bus stopped at her neighborhood. Anna stepped off carefully, her crutch tapping softly against the ground. The streets were quiet, lined with small houses. The warm glow of lamps spilled out of windows. She walked slowly toward her own home, and as she moved, she noticed something new. She wasn't hiding anymore. She wasn't afraid of who might be looking. Each step she took with her crutch now felt proud, as if every sound it made was a reminder: I am still moving. I am still strong. When she entered her home, her mother looked up from the kitchen table. Anna, you're late, she said, worry clear in her eyes. What happened? Anna smiled gently, setting her bag down. It was a long day, she said softly. Then, after a pause, she added, but it was also a good day. Her mother tilted her head in surprise. She had expected Anna to come home sad, as she often did after facing unkindness at school. But there was something different about her daughter's face tonight. There was a glow, a quiet strength shining in her eyes. Anna did not explain everything. She only carried Grace's lesson in her heart, knowing she would share it when the time was right. That night, as she lay in bed, she stared at the ceiling with a small smile. She whispered the words softly to herself: I am strong. The room was silent, but inside her, it felt as if the stars themselves were listening. The next morning came with golden light spilling through the curtains. Birds sang gently outside, and the air smelled fresh. Anna rose slowly, dressed for school, and picked up her crutch. This time, when she looked at it, she did not frown. Instead, she touched it lightly with her hand and whispered, "Thank you." At school, the halls were noisy as always. Children laughed, ran, and shouted. Some eyes turned toward Anna as she walked in. Before, she would have lowered her head, trying to disappear into the crowd. But today, she lifted her face. She moved forward with steady steps, her crutch clicking proudly against the floor. Some students whispered, but Anna did not care. She remembered Grace's voice, their laughter fades. What remains is your strength. During class, Anna raised her hand to answer a question. Her voice was clear, her smile soft but confident. For the first time, she felt seen not as the girl with a limp, but as Anna, a student with thoughts and answers of her own. At lunch, she sat at a table by the window. A younger boy from another class approached shyly, holding his tray. He looked nervous, his shoulders hunched as if afraid of rejection. Anna smiled and nodded. "You can sit here," she said kindly. The boy's eyes brightened, and he sat down. For a moment, Anna realized something powerful: kindness had a way of traveling. Grace had shared it with her, and now she was passing it on. Days turned into weeks. Anna continued to carry Grace's lesson inside her. Each time she felt small, she remembered, storms pass, but strength remains. One afternoon, as she walked home, she saw a little girl across the street who had dropped her books. Two other children laughed, pointing at her. Anna felt a spark in her heart. She crossed the street, picked up the books, and handed them back to the girl. "Don't worry," Anna said softly. "You're stronger than you think." The little girl blinked, surprised, but then smiled. Anna walked away, her chest warm with courage. She understood now strength was not only for herself. It was something she could give to others, just like Grace had given it to her. Months later, Anna often thought of Grace. She wondered where she was, what she was doing. But even if she never saw her again, Anna knew that Grace's lesson would stay forever. On a bright spring morning, Anna stood outside her school, the sun shining down on her face. She looked around at the busy street, at the people passing by, and felt something new inside her. She was no longer afraid of being different. She was no longer trapped by the laughter of others. She was free. And as she stepped forward, her crutch tapping proudly against the ground, Anna knew the truth: her story was only beginning. It was not a story of weakness. It was not a story of shame. It was a story of strength, courage, and new beginnings. And she would carry it with her, always.